Hello, Trojan and friends, honorable panelists. We wish that you enjoy your networking session, a quick one, and a coffee break during our preparation for the next panel session. And now we are ready to start our second panel session in topic of digital transformation. The integration of digital technology into all areas of a business is fundamentally changing how firms operate and deliver value to customers. Our panelists will share their experiences on what has worked best for their firms. First, allow me to introduce you to our moderator of this panel. Mr. Arif Ansari is the professor of clinical in USC Marshall School of Business. Is an expert in the area of fertilizing content, big data business analytics, data mining, BI, data warehousing, and intelligent system. He holds patents in advanced real-time machine learning system, amongst other achievements. Let us begin our second panel session of digital transformation and give big round of applause to our distinguished moderator, Professor Arif.
Good morning, everyone. So, she gave a wonderful introduction. As you know, I like to give one more introduction. Who am I? Viralizer. What do you want to do now? Create social tsunami in your mind about digital transformation. I'm extremely pleased to have a wonderful panel. And I didn't even think about this. It struck me when I talked to Bernie. I have two people who are running big family businesses. And they have done digital transformation in the businesses. And I have two people who are working professionals at a very high level, thinking and doing digital transformation. I want to give a brief introduction about digital transformation. There are many things in my closing statements. I will talk about other ones. Digital transformation means transformation of mind, transformation of humans. When the first came up with the digital transformation, it was talking about creating a digital mindset. Today, people are working on digital transformation 2.0, which is called digital mindfulness. That means I have to get a buy-in at every stage of my company. That's the world's biggest challenge today. And for me, the most important thing, the digital transformation is going to be the foundation upon which the other technologies which are going to happen is going to depend upon. Some of them, we live in what is called the creator economy, multi-trillion-dollar business. Number 2, Industry 4.0. Number 3, big data, AI, and all those things. I'm a fan of AI, but I'm a bigger fan of high. Human enabling AI. It should not be harm. Human replacing machines. You got the harm. So with that, I would like to introduce my first speaker. I know, my first speaker, Bernie, to the stage. Is the chairman and CEO of Gateway Trading Company Limited. Bernie says is chairman of Gateway Trading Company, an enterprise that operates in automotive, heavy machinery. They missed a lot of it. He serves as a director of many companies, and talking to him, I saw how he did digital transformation without even calling it digital transformation. I'm looking forward to learning from you, sir. Thank you. My second speaker is Vimal Ambani. I think I got the order right. As you can see, in some sense, we are soulmates in terms of reach. So, Vimal is the CEO of Tower, overseas, specializing in solvent and UV inks, etc. I came from another conference. They're talking about chemical-based signal processing, and chemical-based deductions, which is going to be a transformational one. And he also does a lot of investments, and he has a keen eye, which I call the helicopter view, of looking at companies and grabbing on the opportunities, if I'm not mistaken. Welcome, sir. The next speaker I'm going to introduce to the stage is Paul Wilson. Paul Wilson is a regional director, government healthcare education and research. That doesn't tell you everything. He was the founding head of sales for Google Cloud in Asia. Think about it, being the founding sales, right, for Google. And right now, he talks about zero trust and cybersecurity. I learned the word yesterday, which is called zero knowledge. Zero knowledge needed in terms of blockchain. There's so many things that are happening, new words are coming up. He'll give us a lot of his experience and we'll be benefit from you, sir. Thank you. Right? The next one I'm going to introduce is my student. Okay, I don't want to get your pronunciation wrong. I'm very bad at that. Okay, I'm going to call it Franklin. I can't pronounce your last name. Sorry about that. Franklin is iPad 38. So talk about Franklin. He patented my end of story. In a t-shirt. And now he said, Professor Ansari, remember me? I said, yes. You began a new journey. A wonderful journey as a professional. So we're going to talk about Franklin's in charge. He's in charge of hotels. Right? I don't want to forget anything. Franklin is in charge of international hotels for Fliggy Travel, Alibaba brand. Can you think of it? Alibaba. Very big. And he's going to share our thoughts on how he implemented digital transformation, digitizing humans for the travel industry. Thank you guys. I welcome all of you to the panel. So being the moderator, I want to keep it short and sweet. First, I would like to ask Bernie to share his thoughts on digitizing.
Hello, good morning. I'm Iber too. So don't ask my age. Before I go on to my main subject, I would like to first of all introduce my company, which is the oldest, which established by my father, and that you can go for the second slide. Taipei Trading, because we do the trading business for the last going to be 69 years very soon. Because of our integrity, because of our credit, we are able to establish a lot of joint venture companies, especially with Japanese affiliate, Fortune Motor with the Mitsubishi Motor, Taiwan IG, which is gas, and then which we are also still developing the remote reading system. People Enterprise is a B2C. This is the company I failed the most because I get my hands on, and finally I decided I should hands off because this is a new business. I know nothing about it. I let the younger generation take over. Kao, and probably a lot of people from Indonesia, from South Asian countries, is a BLA shampoo, okay, and Attack detergent. That Kao, actually the product development of South Asian country is from Taiwan, not from Japan. Because about 10 years ago we asked, and then I got pissed off at the Japan top management. I said, let Taiwan develop a product for you. You do the basic research, we do the applied science. Mizuno, which is golf clubs, JPX, the shoes, there's pens, this shirt. This is F1 shirt. Dunlop is also Dexel, Dunlop tires. Okay, and next page, please. Also, we are doing anything but food business. Anything going to my mouth, we don't do, because this is only business. Throughout our whole history, we failed because I ate too much. So we developed ESG with the Okamura to develop a lot of commercial environment and ESG. We do the half of 7-Eleven warehousing operations for 7-Eleven in Taiwan. And then we also, actually we have a group of employees I haven't seen for 3 years. They have been working very hard in TSMC constructions. Mitsubishi corporations, and then of course we do also do the leasing of warehousing equipment. Okay. This is pretty much the reason I introduced Taipei trading, because I want to bring into my next subject, is that when I came back to Taiwan in 1990, I persuaded my father to get, after then spend 6 years, to get rid of all my family businesses. Actually, we literally give our shares back to all my uncles, my grand-uncles, and then get out of it. Because I found out it's impossible to establish a family-owned business with a professional management. So instead of staying with my grand-uncle, which I have 8, and with my uncles, and then God knows how many children my grand-uncle has. We started from scratch, with fresh, and in 1990. Okay, next subject. So this is all beginning of a family-owned business with a professional management. Okay, next page, please. And I'm going to set up the next slide is our Fortune motor. Fortune motor. Okay, the next page, please. Fortune motor. We have a joint venture with Mitsubishi Corporation, with Mitsubishi Motor, and several business families, and then China Motor in Taiwan. And since 1990, after we took over the company, at that time, we developed into a thoroughly professional corporations. We pull all the family members out from a hierarchy. Okay? So there will be never a manager got scolded by senior manager, and that manager went on the board and scolded the senior managers. Okay? So we trusted the professionals. Okay? What's good? And then later on we developed the total sales about I'm not sure because I don't know. It's about just on Mitsubishi alone, our sales is about 1.3 billion US dollars. Not counting anything else. Including China operations. And throughout the development, we have used car operations, franchise. Actually, 20% of them are our retired employees. They open their own shop, franchise. How many employees? I don't know. Then on Fortune Motor alone, we have about 3,800 employees, and probably say for the 30 years and for all our histories, we have never laid out 1%. And we have been paying, and always pay our wages on time. We never delay paying our wages. Okay? And then we have a pre-owned car services, which China Motor, our Fortune Motor, we occupy about 9% of the total market in Taiwan. And then we occupy professional body and paint centers. We have 30 centers. Actually, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Audi, and whenever they have body work, you go to the Mercedes body shop, they say 20,000, and they come to us, they pay 20,000 only. and pre-owned car services, which is the used car operations, car financing, and our bad debt rate is 0.5%. The average bank bad debt rate is 2%. Okay. We have business in China, and now we have e-commerce. We started evolve into e-commerce, and then because we do so much IT in-house, actually we have an IT company to design a lot of a system for other companies, including DMS, WAS, warehouse management system, WMS. Any of that all developed through one simple concept. We transformed our family-owned business into a professional. So the family members can only stay within the board unless, and if you're going to be in this company, you start from scratch and you cannot be on the board. You choose. And then we don't, and then I told today, instead of so-called digital transformation, I would prefer to talk about human stories. First of all, again, we don't fire anybody. For the last 3 years, actually we increased our employment. To us, a digital transformation, is not to hurt people, is to help people. And it started 30 years ago when I took over, when my father took over. I was one with a lot of bullet holes because I was rebel within the board. So, because at that time, older generations, they say, digital transformation, how much it cost? Boy, it costs a lot of money. You don't do anything. It doesn't do anything. Well, I took one bullet. I took 10 bullets. It doesn't matter. But we did not start from digital transformation. We started from SOP, Standard Operating Procedures. We train our employee from top to bottom, bottom to top, all the proper standard operating procedures. Once they get used to it, digital transformation become very easy. Really become. So today, and during the process of developing, we also develop a customer relation database, which is handwritten in cards. We collect all the customer information on the card, and eventually, after 6 years, we put into the digital. Because if you don't have anything, if you develop digital transformation, you have nothing. So right now we have about 800,000 customers. 800,000 customers. Data within. That's why we are able to have better debt ratio than the bank. Because we know how many wives do they have? How many children they have? What the children's age? Whatever. So, my colleague right here, he is the biggest private investigator in Taiwan. But we rely on his data, but we have our own data. And this is our top corporate secret. Because of that, we're able to develop used car operations. And then, so digital transformation for us, we don't have any resistance because people, our employees, realize it's helping them rather than sending them back and they are going to do their jobs.
Thank you, Bernie. I want to ask you a question in the interest of time. Bernie has been a leader, a thought leader. When I spoke with him, he told me so many things, and these people are doing research to find out. He had all the data on the employees' operations by 4 p.m. That means you have converted a system into near real-time business. So how did he get that foresight?
Lucky, I guess. No, I think most important thing, again, trust your professionals. The difference between family member and the professionals. The family member, we look at the cost. When the professional, they don't. They look at, okay, I'm going to be the manager for 4 years. Why should I plan anything above and beyond 4 years? Then we implement a system where you are responsible for your successor's performance. So when you leave the job, if your successor is not doing a good job, or because of you get penalized. Doesn't matter if you get promoted or not. But if so people are willing to work out.
Thank you. Now I'll open up the question to the panelists. Want any questions to ask them?
Thank you for the comprehensive description of your business and your experience. I was wondering, in your digitalization venture, as you were digitizing, what was the biggest challenge that you came up against, and how did you overcome it?
How to predict the future? Really? It changes so fast. I have no idea. Actually, anybody in this room a professor has it? I don't. 4 years ago, we went to our center and looked for the digital selling tools. And while we're developing it, now there's 3D. Now we're developing 3D selling tools. That's all. And in the future, there's going to be a different subject. Automobile industry going through a whole lot of changes. How we can cope, and we don't know, because most of the top managers in automobile business, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. Give him a big hand. Bernie is a transformational leader. He's a foresighter. He has so much foresight into the business. Right now he's thinking about e-coffs, which are going to change the business if you're talking about it. And he's thinking about how it's going to transform. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to welcome Vimal Ambani. And with a small introduction in terms of digital transformation, I spoke to him very briefly, and that struck my attention. Digital transformation doesn't mean only for companies. It's also for the unserved. The unserved market is huge. Not only that, we have to uplift. We can't be greedy. We have to be humble, magnanimous, and helpful. With that said, I would like to welcome Vimal Ambani.
Thank you. Just to give you a bit of my background, I used to be in manufacturing, have done textiles, aluminum alloys, etc., and banking. I was in trade finance, international trade finance, etc. And this was a bank in Malta. We financed for the pre-demolition ships, etc. Anyway, so now I'm purely into investments. We invest into public markets, real estate, startups, etc. And with that background, I am not a master of technology like a lot of the other speakers here. I invest into people. I invest into companies that are changing or catching a trend. Very few, if any of you, will understand what a Y2K moment is. And that dates me to be a dinosaur. But India is going through a Y2K moment in almost any and every industry that you can think of. There is absolutely zero investments in technology or in real estate, zero investments in mass media and promotions. And yes, there is investments, but what is coming up in the future, that's completely different. This whole crypto, of course, India has taken a very head in the sand attitude about crypto right now. But I do think NFTs have a fantastic application in India, especially in the real estate market. A friend of mine, we are launching crypto for the first time in India for real estate investments. India is largely a investor-driven real estate market, and real estate is probably the largest single industry of India, in the organized and unorganized sector put together. So in that sense, I think if we are able to catch the right wave at the right time, work with the government to get regulation into place, because without regulation, I don't think organized, serious pension kind of money can come into play. It's only the speculative money that can come into play. And what we see in the cryptos and NFTs, etc., billion-dollar valuations going down and crashing overnight, etc. That's not where serious money can come into play. So having said that, my talk was more on. Oh, that's not the right slide. I don't know what's so. Given that, I think this is the third or fourth slide. Back. Anyway, so the that's okay. Then I don't need the slides. So let me just look at Arif my first. So what we are looking at is just as an investor, what I look for is just every market composed of buyers, sellers, and regulation if there is fair play of the government, etc. So I look at companies which are yes, okay. So I look at markets where there is fair priced and reliable services, which makes money for everybody in the play, and looking at solutions which address a problem or is a need to have a must-have solution rather than a solution in search of a problem. That's we have a lot of new technology coming up across the world and in India also, which are all great solutions, but in search for a problem right now. And I look at investments where there is a current problem, needs to be addressed, and how do we invest into those, and how do we capitalize into those, and what's a different way to look at that problem, and how do we structure a solution around that problem. So, next slide. Next slide. As far as business owners, as investors, as I said, we need to look for market opportunity, what's the size of the opportunity, and guidelines, government guidelines. Is there government guidelines creating a fair play for all the participants? As I said, in the real estate market, there are guidelines are non-existent. So you can have a smart contract, an NFT-driven smart contract, but if that smart contract does not give you ownership right over the underlying asset, would it be fair to buy a smart contract, assuming that you're buying a piece of real estate, a physical piece of real estate? You're not. It's just giving you a smart contract without the right to have that asset. So if the government regulation comes into place that yes, these are the kind of smart contracts for real estate and these are the kind of smart contracts for currency, etc. Once that is into place, a lot of serious money. And that's what we are developing and we should be launching in about a month or so in India. And what I look at is technology that enables scale. Let me give you an example. Just recently, a company in India, I have not invested in that company. That company has sanctioned a loan of 160 rupees. That's about $1.50 to $2 kind of value in 10 minutes. Now think of it this way. This is application for a loan, doing the verification of the customer, doing digital verification of who the customer is, the banking transaction, and disbursal all within 10 minutes. So it's not like going to a Starbucks coffee shop or whatever, or any coffee shop. You can't buy $1.50, you can't buy any coffee from Starbucks anyway. So going to a coffee shop, buying a coffee for $1.50, paying by a credit card, but that's only the credit portion, not the actual KYC establishment, etc. And the company makes a profit on this. Another company that I've invested in, we process about $50 billion transactions between banks and for GST payments and customs payments. That's about $50 billion a year approximately. That's the kind of transactions. It's a 25 people team, out of which bulk of them are into development, and the USP of this is, yes, there are some existing softwares. With these softwares, the company offers to its clients the ability to increase a client size by 10 times. They currently handle 20, 30 clients, they are able to do 30, 40, or rather 200, 300 clients, etc. So these are the kind of technologies that I look for. agriculture, again, Y2K moment in agriculture, absolutely zero investments. We have invested into a company that, and I'm just giving examples because you can get an idea of where the country is and where the opportunities lie. And in agriculture, farmers take a picture, digital picture of the crop, etc. Scientists sitting across the table with a lot of machine learning and AI applications are able to give indication of what the problem is and how we increase the yield. They do yield management, when to harvest the crop, where should they sell the crop to get a better price. Now with regulation which is coming in with the current government, FPO, farmer producer organizations are able to agglomerate the landholding size, which are relatively small in India, without transferring the ownership rights. In India, ownership rights of agricultural land is a very emotive issue. So without transferring the ownership rights, they're able to commercialize on the crop in a far better manner. So these are the places where technology at scale is coming into play now, because with this kind of technology, now we have almost 3 million farmers on our app right now, and utilizing this on a regular basis. So this is the simple applications of that technology. Thank you. I went through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimal. As I told you, you have taken a helicopter view of serving the unserved. 3 million farmers. That's a lot. And they need the benefits of digital transformation, and that's what is bringing to the table. My question is, what made you to think about these things? You said, I'm not looking for a new solution, right? I'm looking for an existing solution, how to apply the existing solution to benefit everyone. Your thoughts?
A friend of mine actually in the US was a professor at Yale. I think he's still a professor at Yale. Teaches a course on appropriate technology, not current technology, not cutting. And it stuck to me that there's always appropriate technology would be great, and it needs to make commercial sense in that sense. And appropriate technology needs to take into account not only the developer side of the view of the thing, but also the customer. The customer needs to be ready to be able to absorb that technology, to be able to utilize the technology in a safe and secure manner. If I'm required to memorize passwords, is that everything, and then I write it down on a piece of paper and stick it on the fridge, that's not going to work. That's not a solution that's going to work. So my request for this thing is, where is the money? I need to see cash flow or a potential cash flow in the future for me to invest in.
Thank you, sir. I know you guys are eagerly waiting for questions. At the end, you open up everybody in the panel. Right now, I want to give the panelists. Any questions from the panelists? Okay, thank you, sir. We'll wait for the audience question. The next person I'm going to introduce is Paul Wilson. And I'm going to take a different view. I like to take a bird's view. He has been as a leader of Google, and he has seen many things, many emerging technologies, and they were in the forefront of technology, digital transformation, technology transformation, mind transformation, and pretty soon we are going to hit singularity. We'll talk about that later, between man and machine. So let's hear from him.
Great, thank you so much. Before I begin, I'll provide a little bit more context of who I am, because you kind of see me as the Google person or maybe Microsoft person, but I spent a lot of time in emerging markets, very emerging markets, including Myanmar. I've lived 8 years in Myanmar, and that was an amazing experience. I lived there in the late 90s when it was a very different place. And then I moved back in 2012 and stayed there through 2017. And I was delighted that Professor Drobnik brought the IBER community and USC community to Yangon. I think it was a very rich experience. But the real message that I want to convey in terms of my own personal journey since I left Los Angeles is the strength of this network. I met Bernie in Yangon. He came to Yangon, and it was fascinating because I introduced him to some of the people I knew in the automotive business. And the story about the former employees who then went on to have their own businesses for the used cars because they understood the product, he could trust them, they were experienced, they understood the service requirements, and he provided an extension of their employment, and he had the loyalty. So that story always struck with me. But so especially for the 45s in the class, you know, leverage the network as best you can. So I want to talk a little bit about digital transformation, but again, my perspective is primarily from how governments think about transformation. My story, personal story, was a military officer, then coming out to Southeast Asia with companies that were helping licensed operators, new telecoms operators, because in the mid-90s, companies were opening up, deregulating their new mobile entrants and so on. So it's kind of the signal corps officer to telecoms, then to software, then to the cloud industry. So that's kind of my journey. But most of it has been really with, customers have been agencies that provide services to citizens. So whether it's in government or education or healthcare, that's really where I've kind of found my calling. So we can go to the next slide. So digital transformation, especially going into the pandemic and then now coming out of the pandemic, has been fascinating from a government perspective. For those of you who are in government or have worked with government, not really categorized as the most agile organizations or even innovative organizations. The pandemic forced government agencies' hands. They had to solve problems quickly, at scale. People were dying. And so it was fascinating to be in Southeast Asia, or Asia more generally, and to be in a position to be able to get technology to governments, to healthcare ministries, and a lot of the work we did originally was around contact tracing. So many of the applications that you're using that are on your phone are powered by companies that I work for or other companies that are similar. So the ability to bring technology at scale to help us just simply trying to understand how to contain a very deadly virus. But more generally, as we come out of the pandemic, and if you kind of look more broadly, what do you as citizens, what do you expect of your government in terms of how do they need to change, how do they need to transform? So I just put up here on the slide, productivity is incredibly important. Productivity doesn't mean job loss, it means being able to provide a higher quality of service at a faster speed to citizens. And so employee productivity is incredibly important. The ability for agencies to be more efficient within their agencies or to be able to work more effectively across agencies, so whether it's goods that are coming into the country and the ministries of finance or tax, to be able to process that with customs, those kind of outcomes are highly desirable by governments and by citizens and business owners. The ability to do this all very securely, obviously very, very important. So down at the lower, on your left, the constituent engagement. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to host a delegation from West Java province. So this was the CIO was in the office in Singapore, and I was incredibly impressed by what they were considering and what they were thinking about. One of the metrics that they were tracking was, how do citizens in the province rate their own government applications, their mobile applications? They were so transparent, they measured, like, do people, they download these applications from places like Play Store, and what do they actually rate, and they care about what citizens think about their app. I just thought that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that would have really not been something that governments would have been so transparent about. And last, in terms of geolocation services, I spoke in the earlier session about the importance of collecting data around traffic, around air quality. There's going to be a session later on that in terms of sustainability. But all these are very, very important from a government's perspective. Let's go to the next slide. I'll just kind of drill down in two more areas. One is healthcare transformation. It came up in the last session that we had. Governments clearly want to provide better healthcare quality service at an affordable price to their constituents. But it's very, very expensive to treat disease and address wellness after it's already an issue. So it's not new to you. You're familiar with this as well in terms of being more proactive in thinking about wellness early on. But this notion of population health is very important to governments here in the region. We're working with a government in Singapore which has many different, 3 or 4 important healthcare clusters that are looking at how they can take technology, how they can use devices, how they can get families involved with care, how they can share information, do it all securely. But it's all meant to try to just increase the degree of wellness, because the rising healthcare costs in Singapore, and I'm sure in other countries as well, is a real factor that the government's contending with. Let's go to the next slide. So here, actually, in Indonesia, we were fortunate to partner with the Ministry of Health and with a local company. And this actually started with a meeting that we had, a virtual meeting we had with the minister in the early stages of the pandemic. And at that point, the minister was looking for ideas of how companies like ours could help and provide some immediate, urgent assistance. But it evolved into this theme of population health. And there's a company, I mentioned this, this company called Connected Life. Fascinating company, it's privately held, it's not big, based in Singapore. And they created this platform to be able to connect government agencies, primary care providers, insurance companies, even individual family members, to be able to actually have a complete platform to be able to provide a higher degree of wellness in a much more proactive state. So we've been working with the government here in Indonesia. Let's go to the next slide, please. Education. Obviously, during the pandemic, how students could learn and how teachers could provide that learning had to change just very, in a major transformation. And so I was able to be involved with many of the ministries of education here in the region. And I must say that if you're citizens of these countries, you should be incredibly proud of the seriousness of which the government took toward addressing these needs of education for students. But what was apparent in that was that the use of technology in terms of providing learning to students that were at home just totally fundamentally changed the way people think about education. And it was fascinating to see. It was really a joy to be involved with some of that transformation. But it's not really just transformation at like a K-12 or primary school. Lifelong learning is an important theme as well. And so you'll see governments, Singapore is probably a good example. Singapore has a program called Skills Future, where the government realized that as economies changed, as the nature of work changed or industries changed, it was important to make sure that people who were mid-career, who maybe had never worked in technology, had the ability to acquire skills, digital skills, other skills, to actually continue to be productive in terms of contribution to the GDP, but also in terms of individual sense of well-being, that being productive and being able to learn skills that they could apply to kind of get recharged and rejuvenated in terms of their career was it's just a fascinating experience for us. In Indonesia, sticking with that theme, Indonesia is really fortunate in terms of the Ministry of Education, Culture and Research. They have a minister who comes from tech, and who is very energized, but is able to apply the lessons that he's learned in terms of taking a startup, growing it at scale, being able to understand user experience, how to collect data, provide better services, was then applied to the Ministry of Education and Research. So we were able to support the government during the pandemic as they were looking at how do they provide education, curriculum, and so on to students. But they're also able to really help the teachers as well. So the teachers could focus on learning, address, using data, using some of the insights, address problems before they became so severe that students would either drop out or the learning cycle would just be impacted, where it would just take a lot of effort to kind of get folks back on track. In the earlier session, Kevin talked about a company called Ranguru, which is one of the unicorns here in Indonesia. Fascinating company. If you want to kind of learn about a really cool story in terms of education and education technology, a tech company here. And what the engagement I had with them a couple of months ago in California was they were interested in culture. Like, what does a really innovative company need to, how do they behave? What are the cultural norms? But education more broadly in terms of digital transformation is an area that's impressive. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Paul, just a minute. So you brought in, Paul got a very important point, that is diversity, thought and culture, which are very, very important. Because you worked in different regions, how did they feel it? Did they take it, or is resistance, or different type of resistance, or same from a human point of view?
Sorry,
in a human point of view, when the humans were taking this digital transformation.
Oh yeah, and we talked about this just before. Yeah, that's a great point. People don't really like change, right? So it's digital transformation and technology transformation. The use of technology can be incredibly scary to people. And in the field that I work, which is in public sector, you see a very big difference between government leaders and industry who recognize and provide clarity about why are we doing this change. And there's a whole field of research, which I'm sure you're delighting your students with, around how do you bring people on board with that change? Because introducing technology to do something faster or to do the same thing faster doesn't necessarily mean it will be better. But the cultural aspect of it is absolutely fantastic. Thanks for the question.
I have a question for you, Paul. Does Google sell individual data provided it's sanctioned by the government? I'll give you a specific example. For example, shadow policing, in a way, going down a one-way street in the wrong direction. That's a clear violation of the law. And the Google GPS locations would be sure. Would that, if government sanctioned that data, will be selling that data? Be willing to sell that data or able to sell that data?
So important to understand, what data is owned by Google versus owned by the government. In this case, Google doesn't own data per se, right? I mean, if it, in the sense that you're describing in terms of violation of traffic and so on, Google can collect the data. Google anonymizes the data, working with the customer will make sure that the right people have access to that data. And even within that access to that data, there's multiple layers of data, which is the classification, what's irrelevant, and so on. But no, Google doesn't make a business model out of selling data so that the local authorities can issue a traffic ticket. So that's not how we operate. I mean, in the business that I work in, which is in the cloud services business, basically our job is to provide a computing platform, at scale, so you can do things much, faster, simpler, and a lot of security.
Thank you.
Okay.
In the interest of time, I want to give questions to all the visitors here, my students, right, alumni, and everyone. Just hold your thought for a minute. Now, I want to introduce our panelists. Right? So before that, I want to say one thing. Smart technologies don't make people smarter. That's what research is telling us. For example, for me, my wife says what? Work. No entertainment. What is the use? So I'm bringing Franklin here. So he's going to dazzle us in telling us how digital transformation is going to entertain and make the travel enjoyable. It's all yours.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. So, by way of continuing that introduction, I'm an IBER 38, and I was privileged to have 2 courses with Professor Ansari, so it really feels like full circle for me. When I graduated from IBER in 2016, I went to work at Expedia, a leading online travel agency, former Microsoft, and then from there I joined Alibaba in 2018, so I've been at Baba now for 4 years. And if you could put my slides up, please. Excellent. So what I'll be talking about today is digital transformation in the travel space. And you may be wondering, why is the Alibaba guy talking about travel? Next slide, please. And it's because of this. So Alibaba's business is divided into 3 verticals. We're mostly well known for our shopping and traditional e-commerce verticals, the buying and selling of physical goods through the consumer-to-consumer brands, Taobao, business-to-consumer brands, Tmall, and we're often compared to Amazon and eBay, and those comparisons are accurate to a certain extent. We're much larger than both of those e-commerce platforms combined. We're the largest e-commerce platform in the world. We're also the largest digital wallet in the world. And with that territory, what we're trying to do, we have 5 globalization strategies across Alibaba that Jack Ma introduced several years ago. One of those globalization strategies is called Global Fun. And Global Fun is a globalization strategy to cater to 150 million Chinese that are going abroad every year. Of course, these are pre-COVID numbers. And so within that Global Fun strategy, Fliggy, the travel brand, is working very closely with Alipay to provide a Chinese ecosystem for Chinese travelers when they go abroad. Free and independent travelers, those that are booking their own hotels, their own flights, etc. So you can see that Fliggy's on the right-hand side in the lifestyle category. And we have many business units. If you've never been to China or don't read Chinese, they're of course unfamiliar to you, but we have the Google Maps of China, which is Gaode. We have the Whole Foods of China, which is Fresh Hippo, that blue hippo. We have a food delivery service, a music streaming service, and as we're here in Southeast Asia, of course, the leading e-commerce platform Lazada, which was recently acquired. Next slide, please. So what I'll talk about today is a familiar experience that I think we've all had, not at this hotel, of course, but at other hotels, where we are standing in line to check in. My gosh, how annoying. You got to produce your identification, you have to pay a deposit. When you leave the hotel, they have to inspect your room, ensure that you didn't trash the room or break anything inside. And then finally, a few days later, a few weeks, maybe even up to 14 days later, the authorization on your credit card will be released. So within Fliggy, we've been looking at these customer pain points. And today I'll talk about 2 innovations that we've already launched actually for a long time now to really reduce or actually relieve those customer pain points. So next slide, please. So the first innovation that we've introduced, this is back in 2015, is called Xinyongju, or roughly translated into English as credit living. So those of you that have spent a lot of time in the United States will be familiar with a credit FICO score, right? Now China, previous to Sesame Credit, which was introduced by our sister business unit Alipay, did not have a traditional credit score. So Alipay developed a traditional credit score called Sesame Credit in English, Chinese, 芝麻信用. And if your credit score is above a certain amount, typically 550 or 600, then when you enter a hotel that supports this product, you do not need to wait in line to check in, you do not need to pay a deposit, and when you leave the hotel, you do not need to wait for any room inspection to happen to make sure that you haven't trashed your hotel room. So since we've introduced this technology, the uptake in China has been tremendous, and we've saved billions of RMB in deposits, millions of hours waiting in line in a queue, and it's really just leveraging the power of the Alibaba ecosystem across several different business units. So this is an innovation that we're really, really proud of. Next slide. The next thing that I want to talk about is something that not many people know. If you come to our headquarters in Hangzhou, you will see the Fly Zoo Hotel, the Alibaba Future Hotel. Why is it called Fly Zoo? It's called Fly Zoo because all of the business units of Alibaba are named after an animal. Fliggy is named after a flying pig, all right? Tmall is a cat. Ant Financial is, of course, or Alipay is named after an ant, because Jack Ma always says, small is beautiful, right? Our mission was to empower millions of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs and enterprises, because for Jack, small is beautiful. We want to power the small guys, and that's how we win. So the reason it's called Fly Zoo is because once you go to this hotel, you will see all of the different brands, the pigs, the ants, etc. Next slide, please. And in this hotel, we've introduced a number of digital technologies, including facial recognition for check-in. So once you check into this hotel, you do not need to interact with a human. This is before COVID, right? So you can imagine the foresight. You don't need to interact with a human. You can check yourself in automatically. There are no keys. A record of your face is taken, and that is used to access all parts of the hotel, including the common areas. And there is a wide use of robotics to deliver room service and to also deliver other items within the hotel. And we have also developed our own version of Amazon Alexa called Tmall Genie. Has anybody ever used Tmall Genie? My Chinese colleagues? No? Tmall Genie. So you'll see on the top right-hand side, I actually have one in my home as well, is Tmall Genie. You can use it to control the functions in the hotel room. So turn on the lights, open curtains, turn on the TV, etc. So this hotel is where we test and implement a lot of our AI and digital technologies that we hope to use in the future, right? And we don't plan on taking on the likes of IHG or Marriott. It's really just an experimental lab for us to be able to have some fun with the technologies that we're developing in-house. If we can go to the next slide, I'll play for you a video. So I stayed at this hotel last November when I was in China, and there's just a brief demonstration. So the robot is giving me instructions on how to get my food delivery. I was quarantined, so I wasn't supposed to have contact with people, and also telling me that the robot is very happy to serve me. So I thought it was just a very interesting life moment when you're being served by a robot at the Alibaba Future Hotel. So with that, thank you very much for your time, and looking forward to your questions.
That's wonderful. What I found out is delighting people by reducing friction at every point of transaction in travel business. That's wonderful. Any other panelists have any questions? Okay, in that case, I want to open up to our audience. Okay, so the audience, the game is like this. First,
No, I don't. Well, actually, it's a comment rather than questions. This is for your generation, but I think there's no, sorry to say, in the future develop a little bit more human touch. I always love to go to a hotel, especially like an Imperial Hotel in Tokyo. I purposely had to reserve 14th floor and 15th floor. Why? Because when I open the elevator, there will be a lady dressed in kimono, give me a 90-degree bow and say, "Hi, Mr. Lin, welcome back." And then she opened the door for me. That's something I like. But the older generations, I think, okay, thank you.
one is like human touch. I agree too. I ask my students, where do you want to go in Santa Monica? An empty bar or a crowded bar? For me, it's always the empty bar. Because I want to recall my past. For the young students, they want to discover, they want to enjoy. Different thought process. Now, I want to open the floor to questions in the following order. Right? The first one is, introduce yourself shortly, very briefly, question, and then Which panelist you want to answer?
I'm Yu Zhang. I'm Iber 45 from China. I have a question for Bernie. Yeah, I'm Iber 45. You are Iber 2.
Well, don't keep talking about my age.
So
I can still hear my driver 240 yards, okay?
So yesterday we talked about the zero COVID policy in China, and you have factories and business in China. So this kind of policy has a negative impact on your business and the factory. So my question is, in what area did digital transformation reduce the negative impact during the pandemic, especially in mainland China? And in what area digital transformation was not able to solve the lockdown problem? And in the future, what kind of efforts are needed to, in the future to solve all this kind of problem? Thank you.
I'm from Taiwan, so sometimes if I criticize China sometimes. But anyway, this is a panel. I just wish Chinese government can be more on the moderate side rather than extreme. Either I close down or I totally open. And there's like a temporary hotel, temporary hospital, right away they take it down. You shouldn't, but it happened. But as far as our business in China is concerned, yes, it has been hurting for the last 3 years. The lockdown, when some of our shops, we were notified, you better go home. If you don't go home within 1 hour, you're going to be locked down in our office. We'll be locked down in our office. So we have no choice but to reduce our operations, number one. Number two, we completely set different hierarchy. So a local manager has more higher power to make the local decision. Let them make the local decision. So they have more autonomy. Fortunately, all the local managers were trained by us for so many years. Okay, they are loyal. So we trust them, and we are still able to use digital and video conferencing to do the management and reduce the damage to the minimum. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to spread the word around. This side I gave. Now this side, yes sir. And one more thing, please keep in mind, I want to give everybody a chance to ask every one of our panelists a question. So go ahead. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Jagriti and I come from India. I wear 45. Still halfway to go. So my question is to Mr. Ambani. You said that you invest in agri-tech startups. And given that agriculture in India is very much dependent on weather, monsoon conditions, how do you ascertain a sustainable cash flow while investing or selecting the opportunities for investment?
Sustainable cash flow for the investor or for the farmer or for whom?
Investor and farmer both.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, see, yeah, I think it's a question of, in agriculture, like in many other industries, it's a marriage of digital and analog solutions. Okay. For example, in Gujarat, you'll know from Gujarat, a farmer needs water for growth, not electricity, whereas in India we were giving free electricity. The electricity was used for pumping water. So we put in the Sardar Sarovar Dam, which you are probably familiar with. And that dam has provided water, perennial water for this whole area of Gujarat. So Gujarat as a state which was non-existent on the cotton market in the world, today is the dominant supplier of cotton to the rest of the world, including in India. So it's one of the major sellers to China, Turkey, etc. So this is what one of the analog solutions can do to transform agriculture. Marry that with a digital solution, that's when the real impact of the game comes in. For example, failure in monsoon can be devastating for a farmer because at the end of the day, he's the biggest angel investor. There is no safety net for a farmer in most of the countries in some sense. So this was, I believe, in Argentina or somewhere, I don't know where, they introduced a concept of seed insurance. They just priced the seed a bit higher and supplied twice the quantity of the seeds that a farmer would need for the same acreage. In process by which, if there was a failure in monsoon, they could use a second batch of seeds to replant and recoup some of their losses, minimize their losses rather than recoup. So this was more of that. Secondly, now a lot of it is coming in. For example, in India, we also have applications where insurance companies are looking at local weather patterns and local damage from natural cyclonic activity, etc., etc. Using the crop pattern production in nearby fields, etc., to estimate what would have been the yield and therefore compensate the farmers based on losses. So if you are looking from that point of view, this is what loss minimization is. From maximizing cash flow point of view, as I said, the company that I had invested, and there are many others also trying to solve that same problem, is when a farmer harvests the product in India, almost everybody takes the same harvest at the same time to the same market, the prices crash. The company provides inputs as to, okay, this delay your harvesting by a day, or prepone your harvesting by a day, etc., or take it to ensure this market, take it to this market, or take it to the cold storage, or take it to processing units. And fortunately, as you might be aware, probably after 60, 70 years, we have a government in place which is proactive thinking for the next 10 years or 20 years or 30 years rather than thinking of the next monsoon or next elections.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I want to give first opportunity to alumni. Everybody has a chance. We'll all be here to answer more of your questions in person. Anybody from the alumni side who want to ask questions? Okay, I'll give it to the student. Okay, here it is. Go ahead. One day, go ahead, sir. You have a question? You raised your hand.
Hello everyone, I'm Nilabja Mukherjee from India and I wear 45. So I have a question for Mr. Franklin. So the Fly Zoo concept is fantastic and it's very exciting to know that it's a different concept in hotels and in that industry. My question to you is, with all the fantastic work and the exciting opportunities, we also have a darker side to address too, which is this can maybe lead to a ripple effect when it comes to unemployment, large-scale unemployment. Because if everything is done by a digital human or a digital robot, or so that can lead to a lot of unemployment and job loss, basically. So what do you have to talk about that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So the question is, what are we doing about those workers that are displaced from tasks that are automated? So I think the way that we view it is it's very similar to any industry where workers are displaced by robots or any form of automation. Is we need to find other tasks for workers to do that can lead them to be gainfully employed. And at the end of the day, there may be a net loss of actual human employment. There are still a lot of activities that the robots cannot do in terms of delivering concierge services. And of course, our guests do comment on that need of a human touch. So that is something that we're looking at, but we're also looking at moving these employees to other tasks that robots can't do.
Thank you. As a moderator, because I got the signal from the back, I have to wind it up. We can have open questions after this. We'll be here. We'll be more than happy to take your questions. Just to give a closure on this particular panel, we heard from many things. Number one, from the human point of view, right? From a family point of view, how we do these things in a better way, in a wise way. We heard how to reach the unserved market and look and still make it profitable. We learned from him about the global, the technologies, and we also learned how to bring new technologies. Be at the forefront. You're not going to replace. Yesterday I was in another conference. The biggest challenge they were trying to do is, what are the new jobs that are going to come in 2030? So anybody who replaces, we have to upskill them and make them better. As a closing statement, what is digital transformation? That is the glue logic which is going to bring all the advancements in terms of technology and process, both in digital and analog, putting them together. In a nutshell, you're going from a digital mindset to digital mindfulness. That means you have to look at all the stakeholders. That should give a framework for the future. Thank you guys. Thank you for the panel. Give them a big hand.
Thank you, Ansari. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will have the moment for a token of appreciation to mark our thank you to all of our honorable panelists. Therefore, we kindly invite you to please rise from your seat and be at the center of the stage. To present the token of appreciation, we kindly invite Tomoaki, Ishi, and Jane. And for the first, let us give the token of appreciation to our distinguished moderator, Professor Arif Ansari. Before, if you have anything to say or greets to our audience, please.
Thank you so much for being here, and thanks so much that you're sharing valuable insight with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can you please for Jane and Ishi or Tomo to give the token appreciation to all of our distinguished panelists of digital transformation. Mr. Paul already got one, yeah? One is enough, sir, yes? Symbolism of Trojan once again. And let's take a picture together. In a count of 3, give the best smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3. One more time with the official camera. Give a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, once again to all of our honorable panelists. Thank you. Fight on! Trojan, fight on! Mandatory, yeah? Thank you very much. You may return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the time for our lunch session. We'll have approximately 1 hour 15 minutes for lunch break, located at the same area you had your breakfast this morning. For those of you who would like to continue enjoying our third panel session, please kindly return to your seat at 1:15 p.m. And for those of you who would like to switch room, please mind your personal belonging on this room. We will continue after break with our third panel session of Future of Work and Education. We also would like to remind you that we still serving beer for lunch. Wow, what a beautiful life. So please show your lanyard at the lunch area if you would like to have your beer for lunch, yes? And also for those of you who need to do Friday prayer, we would like to inform that the mosque is located approximately around 10 minutes from this hotel, and we wish you to do it at the mosque nearest to the hotel. Enjoy your lunch, ladies and gentlemen, and please once again remind to come back to this room by 1:15. Thank you.